When looking for your favorite tools and supplies for your next flooring job, we have the absolute best place to shop online. Head on over to shagtools.com, the pro's choice for everything from cutters, adhesives, knee pads, shower systems, and more. Shag Tools carries all the premium brands you know and trust. In stock with fast shipping to either you or your job site. And right now, our new customers are going to receive 10% off their initial purchase using the code Huddle10. That's right, Huddle10 at shagtools.com.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Huddle, your weekly playbook helping you gain forward progress in the field of flooring. Simply put, we're here to help you win. For our new viewers, welcome to the team. As always, I got Mr. Daniel and Jose Gonzalez, and we already got comments. All right.
Yeah.
From Preferred Flooring in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Today's a very special episode. Today's topic is an open mic with CFI. What's going on? Essentially, we have the Executive Advisory Board of CFI with us today. We got Rod, Leslie, and Roland, and Phillip. And our goal today is to take your questions, present them to the panel, and have a discussion. So we, as always, highly encourage participation. I also want to say if you're catching us on YouTube, Facebook, any of the platforms, give us a like, subscribe, give us some thumbs up, some thumbs down, whatever you feel like is necessary. We just want you to interact with us. So that being said, welcome everybody. Hope today's going well. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Good. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for being here, specifically the advisory board executive team. I'd like to go around, maybe let the audience know a little bit about you. How'd you get in flooring? How'd you get involved with CFI? And what are you doing now in flooring? So from my screen, I think it's set up the same way
it should
everywhere. We'll start with Roland at the top, and we'll just make a big circle. So Roland, I'm sorry. Let's start with Rod. Rod.
I was going to say.
On my screen, I'm next. I'm the last.
That's the first joke out of the way.
All right, good enough.
Here,
all
I'll
right,
be
so
last.
let's see. I've been in the industry since 1978, so quite a number of years. Got involved while I was still going to college as an installer. Been in it ever since. Started with CFI in '95, which is actually went to their convention the second year that the organization was in existence. Got certified at convention, which is something we don't do anymore, but was pretty interesting. A couple of days prior to certification, you'd come into town and go through the certification, and then hung around and got to go to the convention, which was pretty interesting. And so to date, I've missed one convention since. So I've been to 29 of the 30. So I've done pretty well.
Yeah.
Currently, I'm vice president of operations for CDI Floors here in Kentucky.
All right. Leslie?
So I've been in the industry for 27 years, almost 28, but I came in kind of a roundabout way. I accepted a graphic design position here at QEP Roberts, did graphic design and art, packaging, all that stuff for many, many years. It wasn't until, we've always been part of CFI, I think, almost always been part of CFI as a corporation. About 5 years ago, my job changed a little bit, and it became very important to us to make sure that we were being part of the solution of bringing that next generation in and supporting the installers and being the voice of the installers. So the more I did that, the more I got involved with CFI because it's an amazing group and that's what they do. And then I was asked to be part of the advisory board. And so between my travels, talking to installers and representing the installers, trying to be the voice, I've become very, very familiar with CFI and love it. It's family.
Awesome. Phillip, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. So I was born into the industry. My dad installed for CFI. My brother, Al, he drove us 2 hours to a chapter at Danny Sherman's shop and 2 hours back. That one chapter meeting sold me, and currently I'm the Eastern representative for Crane Cutter Company.
Nice. Mr. Roland.
All right. Well, it all depends on who you talk to, Daniel or you guys. And I've been doing it 150 years, but in reality, I started in 1972. At least, yeah. I started in 1972. I've been doing it. This is 53rd year. I have Thompson's Flooring Installation and Consultant Service. So, as the name is, I do each one of those things. I do some, of course, the flooring store business, but also do some consultant inspections and training. So that's what I do. I got involved with CFI in actually 2002. The first few times they went through, I didn't see any need for it. I was one of those installers that I've been doing it 30 years. Why do I need it to get certified? But then I realized it was my daughter, actually. She said, Dad, she said, why not? You don't have a flooring college, you always want to improve yourself and you always want to show what you can do, go do it. And with the prodding of Junior Harris and David Hunt, I said, okay, and got certified. And then I liked the family feel of it. And I liked what it was looking it could do. And here I am.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you guys all are here with us today. We're going to get kicked off with the topic. We'll get to some questions as they come up. But the topic is what's going on, So who wants to just kind of kick it off? Right now, CFI is doing something. It's going to continue. So tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Well, I guess I'll take that. Yeah, unless you really want to.
But. I think can we just start at this question right here that I'm going to put up? What is CFI? Let's start there. Let's start with the basics.
I saw that question. Yeah.
All right. Well, go ahead, Roland.
No, you run with it. You don't want to get me started talking, do you?
All right. So CFI, Certified Floor Covering Installers Association, which was founded back in 1993. Okay. It was brought about to be able to organize the flooring industry at a point where there really wasn't much structure. There was a lot of people out there that were good at their craft, but weren't getting much recognition. So a group of gentlemen got together and decided that a certification would help identify those that knew what they were doing versus those that were just out there doing work. And so that was the original purpose behind CFI, was to identify the professionals in the industry.
And CFI started, can you give just a little bit of background on how CFI started and maybe what the maturity of it or whatever? Most places start at some point and, grow into what they are today.
Yeah, it started in the Midwest. I think many people that are familiar with CFI certainly know the Walkers, Jim and Jane, and they were very instrumental in getting the organization off the ground. But there was a much larger group than that.
Most places start.
I'm getting a little feedback, but anyhow, they got together at a couple different meetings to discuss their options and what they were trying to accomplish, and they finally landed on this certification program. And it started out with carpet only, And over time, it's evolved into the other floor finishes as well. So currently we offer training in all 4 floor finishes and certification in 3 of the 4.
And that would be carpet, resilient, or LVP, hardwood, and tile?
Well, ceramic, we've recently formed a joint venture with CTF Group, Ceramic Tile Education Foundation. And for many years, we had separate but very similar programs. So I'll give Dave Garden some kudos there. Dave was instrumental in helping get that off the ground, and we now have a 5-week education program that is co-branded by CTF and CFI to educate entry-level ceramic installers. And then the career path, of course, is then to push them towards getting their CTI certification.
Awesome.
And CFI held the first CTI at a CFI location last year. So, we're partnering with them as, they're the ceramic tile people. And we see where that's important for us to realize that and partner up with that.
Awesome. Good deal. Well, let's get to the topic. That was a great intro, because actually I think understanding what CFI is for some people who may not know is important. I'll set the question up with, it's clear that there's been a separation of duty with the executive vice president, I believe was the term.
The title.
Or the title. So what's going on now? How's CFI approaching the future, and how long does that outlook look like?
Well, CFI has decided not to rehire that position temporarily. We do assume at some point in the future we will be hiring another person to fill that role. The difference is in what that role will be in the future. Okay, we're still sorting this out, but many years ago, before WFCA purchased CFI, CFI was ran by its advisory board of directors at that time. We had an education director. Isn't that the term we used back then, Roland? We didn't call him an executive director, did we? I'm trying to remember.
No, we had, he was the educational director, correct. You had John Nama there for a while, and that's that position.
And so the board was still responsible for kind of creating strategic strategy for the group each year, and then monitoring our progress and helping the staff make decisions in terms of what opportunities we should pursue and which ones we should leave alone. And there are times that not every opportunity is a good one. And so what we're doing now as an advisory board is kind of taking back some of that responsibility and now getting a little bit more heavily involved in the interim until we decide that hiring a new person for the role Ralph just left. And then, like I said, we expect it to be structured a little bit different than it has been in the most recent past.
Yeah, and that leads to one of the questions we got in an email, right? Because it says, CFI has had several leadership changes in recent years. How has that affected stability, direction, and long-term planning with the organization?
I'll take that on, Rod. For one thing, we've always had, to add to what Rod said, even though we've had the executive board and now we have the advisory board, CFI's always had committees that any member can put on and ask to be on, either a carpet committee, LVP committee, hardwood committee, and that's done not by board members, advisory board members, and that's done by all members. So you can get on, you can help with the curriculum, you can help put that stuff together and everything else. So that's always been there. It's still there. And actually we beg for people who have the knowledge and that to come on and help with that. So we want people there. So that answers that part of that question that Rod was talking about, what CFI's doing. Then the other is, as far as the we haven't had as many as what you think. I'll just be straightforward with this. When Robert decided to move on and move on to do what he's doing, we looked for somebody. They hired somebody, sort of a rush to get somebody in that position, feeling that they needed to have that position filled. It took one convention for all the members, and we're talking about the members. We're not talking about the board members. We're talking about all the members. It took one convention, which is only a few months into his reign, to realize that he wasn't a fit. All right. So he moved on, and Steve Abernathy, at that time, we didn't have anybody. We didn't go through it. Steve Abernathy came in with WFCA, and he took over for about 2 years that spot, knowing when he came on, he was getting close to retirement and was going to step down. So we knew that for 2 years, that in a certain amount of his time was going to be over. And during that 2 years, we flourished. We grew. He let the board that you're looking at now, but there's some other people. We have new ones on since in the last year. But he let us, and he listened to us. And when we asked him stuff, wanted to put stuff on, he was more than willing to stand there and support us and be there for us. But he retired. So they felt they needed to have another executive director. And that's when Ralph came on. And I think Ralph would still be there today, but they brought him on part-time. I don't think a lot of people realize that he didn't come on full-time. He came on part-time. And he had his other business that he was working with, but he was standing in the back. Well, things changed. And, and he made the decision to care for his family, take care of his family, that he could do what he could do. And his business that he had purchased, which most of everybody's seen that he advertises, he's working to be able to support his family in that way. So I don't think we really have had the drastic change and the drastic fall apart, because the core people have always been there. Our staff, John McHale and Jen Zern, and that are there. They're staple people in our organization. The board is still there. That's ready to step up. It has been stepping up for the last 2 years when Steve was there. So I don't think it's as bad as what people want to make it look like and feel. We've flourished in the last 2 years. We've had more certifications. We've had more people coming back. We've had vendors come back. I mean, our conventions have rose with people and vendors and coming back. So I think we're in a good place.
Can I just add to that just real fast?
Yeah, go ahead, Leslie.
So just from, I work at a corporate company, and we've had a lot of vice presidents of sales. It doesn't mean that we as a company are weak or weaker or stronger or whatever. Like, sometimes you go through personnel, and it doesn't mean that the entire structure, the entire foundation changes. So I think that's kind of what Roland was saying as well, that we're still very firm. Our foundation is still there, and we're going to grow on that. We're going to build.
Okay. There is a clarification over here. Someone said that before it was, in fact, executive director. It wasn't like director of education like you guys were saying. So I don't know. I've not been in it that long.
And it could have been. It could have been. We haven't had one of those for since the 2000 and probably 10. We haven't had that position. Jim Walker was always the CEO, and we only had 2 of those in the time I remember. So as being called the executive director, it could have very well been.
Okay, and we got Dan Churchill on here right now with his conversation starters. We all know this.
Let's just start with my question. just go to that part where it's read from there, Daniel.
Okay, my question is, who is the president? Who is the director of education? Like, so I guess we're looking at titles, but that title of executive vice president is no longer there, right?
Well, let me clarify something, which is probably going to confuse people, but it probably needs to be said nonetheless. Okay. WFCA, when they hire people to run a specific organization, that title is associated with WFCA. They are a vice president of WFCA. So that's where that vice president comes in. Okay? Now, CFI is a subsidiary of WFCA. Okay? So you don't necessarily have a president of CFI. Okay?
I think some of that confusion comes in the corporate world, and maybe we can speak to this a little bit. In the corporate world, when a Coca-Cola, for example, buys, or a Pepsi buys another company, there's typically the CEO of the entire
Umbrella,
overarching structure, and then presidents of each entity that answer directly to the CEO and thus the board. So in that way, I think is where some of the questions might come up, that who is the president, who's leading the charge. And this is just something I'm going to add, is that the wanting to have someone in charge, I was just going to go back to what Leslie said earlier, that very frontlining person, so whoever is like in charge of the organization, are often the face, right? They're out there. What you don't see is maybe some of the positive hirings and other stuff that happens in an organization, where the executive vice president or executive director, whatever the title is, if that position gets vacated in one way or another, that's so much more on the front lines, and people want to know about it. So to tie this back to the regular business world, if the CEO of Pepsi gets let go or quits tomorrow, that's going to be on ABC News. So it's because of that frontline, kind of leadership position, I think, is where a lot of the people are questioning what's going on.
Well, Paul, what we have now as it stands, and is that Rod is the chair of the advisory board. He's also the chair of the advisory board, also sits on the board of directors of WFCA. So when WFCA has meetings, like they just had one in Phoenix, Rod is there representing CFI to the board of directors of WFCA. So if you want to look at who's, I guess, would be in charge, and he's humble, so he's not going to say, "Hey, look at me." He might, I don't know. Anyway, he hey, you are. Anyway, but he is in that position, and that's why we have the executive board, the advisory board, is so there is some kind of leadership there.
right?
Well,
So
that
a lot of
actually
people
leads-
I think a lot of people are looking for one person, but the fact of the matter is that it's many people that get together and make decisions and take that to the WFCA.
Well, and that's what happens in
Correct.
the corporate world.
Rod
A
is the
board
one
of
that
directors usually makes the decisions for the group. It's rarely one individual. And, we have had times in our past where most of the power within the organization rested with one or two people. I think that's a mistake. Okay. I think there are so many gifted and passionate people in our organization that are willing to step up and participate in leadership, that we should be taking full advantage of that. So the fact that we don't, quote, have a president currently shouldn't alarm anybody. It really doesn't speak to a weakness. Rather, it speaks to the strength of this organization, that we're not going to miss a beat. I know time will prove whether or not I'm accurate in making that statement, But I can tell you that at least these 4 people that are sitting in front of you now are committed to making things the very best we can for CFI.
Well,
Yes.
it's gonna just jump in real quick. So there, one of the questions is that I'm gonna pop it back up here. Denise said, the leader that Daniel just kind of referred to. One of the questions, how long do you think CFI can operate by committee? Is it sustainable not to have this says director, a leader who is who is ultimately responsible for making tough decisions in this current structure? So that maybe extrapolates the whole question, like who's our leader? They really want to know is this a sustainable method? And then who is ultimately in charge of making tough decisions?
Can I jump in real fast? Yeah. Because I've heard so much chatter out there about for the installer, by the installer. So to me, this is perfect scenario. We are the members. You're looking at your advisory board. We're all members. We are your voice. So for us to be able to take those voices and push them up through Rod and into WFCA, I don't know why that wouldn't be the perfect scenario. Now, if we are not being utilized or if we're not talking and saying the things that need to be said, then you need to change the advisory board. But I highly doubt that that's happening because we are all very aware of what our members are saying and how they're feeling.
So, yeah,
I have a question about that too. If we're talking about a progression that goes up the ladder like that, what is the ultimate purpose of CFI viewed through the eyes of the WFCA?
So what is the purpose of your question is what is the purpose of CFI?
What is CFI why truly being utilized for, right? If it's got to trickle up and we as members and as a group have to answer to them, because I understand they pretty much own the CFI brand, right? How much of what we're doing is going to hold weight at that table? And then we trickle the information up. We say, hey, this is where we're at, what we need, what we want. How much of that is being implemented back down? They have to see it as value at some point, right?
Let me,
Rod, you need to answer that because he was at the big meeting.
Well, let me see if I can't form that properly. Okay. One, it doesn't just trickle up. I mean, at any point in time, if I want to get a member of the board on the phone, I pick up the phone call. They're very receptive. Okay. I will tell you that having been the CFI representative with WFCA for the last 2 years, that we have a very strong support amongst the WFCA board. And there's always confusion about ownership. And I understand that. I really do. People say, well, WFCA owns you, so they must be telling you what to do. It's never worked that way. And I know it sounds almost foreign to think, well, they're just giving you money and they're letting you do whatever you want. No, that's not necessarily true. We have to submit a budget. We have to explain what we intend to do with the money they give us. But for the most part, as long as we give a responsible position out there, they accept it and we go on down the road together. It's very encouraging for me, the support that we've received, particularly in the last 2 years. Prior to that, I had some doubts too. Okay. And until I sit in that room with them and listen to them talk about how important they thought CFI was to the WFCA overall, I really thought somewhat the same way I'm sure some of our listeners did. Well, that's too good to be true. They're not just giving them money. Well, I will tell you, WFCA does give a lot of money to this industry to support a lot of different aspects. They're the number one funder behind FCEF, Floor Covering Education Foundation. They're out there trying to train young adults on how to get into the industry. I mean, I think that if you guys look around right now, there's a lot of momentum in that direction, and FCF is doing a great job. Kay did a outstanding job over the last 18 months, and since she's taken over leadership, they have really accomplished a great deal. But again, that organization wouldn't exist if it wasn't for WFCA helping with the funding and helping support that with other resources in the same manner that they support CFI. So I know it sounds like, wow, it's too good to be true. Well, there's limits to everything, certainly. If we went out there and blew our budget every year and wasn't showing any progress and wasn't moving closer to balancing our budget, because right now they're picking up a pretty healthy share of the cost, then they might look at us differently. But that's a retailer's organization. They know the value of having quality installers out there working on their behalf every day. And
yeah, I think it makes perfect sense for WFCA to care about installer training and certification and building the installer. I mean, their very main customer relies on them greatly. We've all heard it said about how, flooring looks pretty in the showroom, but the number one factor, whether it looks good in your house or not, is that installer. So at the end of the day, we all serve the community or the consumer who buys these products and thus buys our labor. One of the questions that came up here that I wanted to touch on is, I'm going to reframe it a little bit, but if you have to explain and they say no or say less money is available, then that means they're running CFI and not the members, like you say. Who measures the progress, CFI or WFCA? So essentially,
clarify that real quick, Paul. At least since I've been acquainted with the board, they've not turned down anything we've asked for. So if you were saying, well, geez, we asked them for $1 million and they said, no, you can't have $1 million. Yeah, that would probably be a true statement. They wouldn't give us $1 million unless we could prove to them exactly how we were going to spend it, how it was going to benefit the industry overall. So, yes, I understand. And in the normal mentality, you say, well, whoever's paying the bills it's got to be in charge.
Well, yeah, yes and no, but
a charitable organization works.
But we're also we have to stay within our budget too. They're not just going to keep writing checks. They're going to give us a certain amount of money, and then we have to decide sometimes whether we're doing this program or that program or whatever. But it's they're not saying yes or no. They're saying this is how much you have to spend on whatever you're trying to do, and then we have to decide the right way to spend that money to do what we need.
Yeah, you got a budget.
Thanks for touching on that, because that was one of the questions from an email was how much autonomy does CFI have under WFCA in terms of funding, priorities, and governance? So they just give you a budget and then it's up to CFI to figure everything else out.
Well, we submit a budget.
We have to be good stewards of our money, just like any business, or any home. If you're doing things at home, you have a certain amount of money you have access to, and you got to be good stewards of it and use it wisely. And that's what the CFI Advisory Board and headquarters it tries to do.
And I think that's some people's
go ahead.
I think that some people's misconception is that they look at it as a nonprofit and not a actual business, but the fact of the matter is a nonprofit is a business. So
absolutely. Some of the biggest organizations on the planet are nonprofits.
And quite honestly, nonprofits have to stick to a budget even tighter because they have to be able to justify
everything that they're spending,
grant money or anything. They have to. They're run tighter than non-profits.
for
Hey,
I'm going to
just like,
rapid fire a little bit here to get caught up on some questions. So I just want to see if we can get a quick, hard answer on who measures the progress of CFI. Who measures, like, if we have if CFI has a initiative, who's measuring the progress? Like who's the accountability person? And I don't think anyone's going to be able to get it like completely away from this. We're so used to having a leader. We have a president of the country. We have presidents of companies. We have a team leader on our crews, all the way down to the installer, right? We have someone there. So we're not going to, I think we're going to continue to get questions about this, but who measures the progress? Who says, hey, we did a great freaking job this year, or we did not? Or is that only measured against the proposed metrics? So maybe you say we're going to grow CFI by membership by 20% this year, and you're only judged by how close you got to that. But, or like, I'm just giving an option, but do you understand?
Yeah, I think there's more critical analysis there than just how did you measure against your goals. But I will say this, that look, what we do at CFI is measured by the members' comments today. If they're not happy with something we're doing, maybe some of it can be confusion, maybe some of it can be poor communication on our part. Some of it may be genuine, hey, they don't think we're doing a very good job in one particular area. And, you know, people don't necessarily always want to believe, but the bottom line is that we want your criticism. And the reason we want your criticism is so that we can then do the right thing by you. If we don't know what's going on in people's heads and what they think this organization should be to them, then we wouldn't represent the membership very well, would we? So we need that feedback. Phillip, you haven't said anything, and people don't understand just how super intelligent you are because you sit so darn quiet all the time.
He's listening. Brother.
Well, let me direct this next question straight at you, Phillip.
Yeah.
One of the questions, speaking of criticism, is the new logo.
The logo change,
both good and bad. But what is there's two different logos, and they represent who? You say the bullseye is for the installer and always will be. Why two? CFI is for and by installers, and we stand as one. So, Phillip, you want to address that one, or
if my internet holds up, I will. So we've had two logos for a long time now. We've had the one behind me, and we've had the squares. So WFCA is just modernized all the logos under their brand to bring all the brands together. But if you're a certified installer, that's still the original logo that's still hanging on. I don't know. Like, we've had the squares for years and nobody questioned it. We went from the squares to the new logo. Now everybody's questioning it. They just modernized it and brought us up under the umbrella with the other guys.
right? And I think Leslie could probably touch on this since she's in marketing more, right? And it's that's all it is. It's a rebrand of something that's already there.
It really is, and I think there was pushback when they went to the square logos, if I remember correctly. But I mean, even at QAP Roberts, we've changed our logos. We've gotten bad feedback. People don't like change. Coca-Cola has changed their logo. Sometimes you just need a refresh. And WFCA went through and did a refresh of all of their affiliates, pulled them all under one umbrella. And it really is a good thing, because at the end of the day, we want to show that we're part of a bigger movement and a bigger presence. It gives us strength. Yeah. So people saying that now we have two logos, there's confusion. There's always been two logos. Phillip said it exactly.
Well, I was going to build on that just a little bit. I mean, logos change and brands change because people change. And so when things change, you modernize things to keep with that change. So that's kind of a normal progression of an organization. On to the next one here. It says a little history. How much support did WFCA give CFI when Jane and Jim were running things? I don't know what that exactly means, other than I don't believe they were even involved at that point.
Yeah, they were, Paul. Chris Davis was the head of WFCA, and every year he saw that CFI got at least $50,000 from WFCA every year. Sometimes it was a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, but at least it was. Normally it's at least 50,000, sometimes a little bit more. But yes, WFCA has been supporting CFI from almost the beginning.
All right. Well, that answers that nice and direct. On to the next one. So does the board vote to make the final decisions that get brought to the WFCA? So when there's something that comes up that needs addressed, does the board vote on it?
About this. We don't, as long as we stay within our own mission statement, okay? I'm assuming most people understand what a mission statement is, and so it describes what your organization stands for, right? And as long as we stay within the parameters of our mission statement, unless we're going to ask for more money, we don't have to ask permission for anything we do. Now, if we were making poor decisions, that'd be a much different situation, I'm sure. But as long as we're true to what the organization stands for, we don't have to go ask permission to do anything. We just, as Leslie said a minute ago, we balance our resources to be able to choose which is the better opportunity, and then that's the one you pursue. Nobody's actually holding our strings and saying, we want you over here. That's not the way it's working.
Okay.
And like I said, it's an interesting dynamic, and I understand why people are confused by it. But nonetheless, it is how it is working.
Well, truth is there's a staff that does the day-to-day operations, right, and has job descriptions that they work within. And I think this might have been, I'm going to embellish a little bit maybe, but it might have been more of a question on big changes. If something big is going to change, does the board vote on it and then take it to WFCA for final approval? Or does CFI, are they able to say, hey, we're going to implement X, Y, and Z, whatever that might be. We're going to implement X, Y, and Z just to let you know, CFI. So is it, hey, or WFCA, is it, hey, WFCA, we're doing this, it's within our budget and everything's good, even if it's a big change? Or does it like, hey, WFCA, can we do this? That seems to be.
Well, let me use this as an example. If we decided tomorrow that we wanted to go ahead and pursue hiring a new individual to take over the executive director role, then that would have to be approved by WFCA's board. Okay. Those are the level of decisions that would have to be taken up the ladder to their board, because again, that person actually gets hired by WFCA to run the CFI division. Now, again, we're looking at a little bit different structure in the future, because honestly, there you go, Dave put it up for us. There's our mission statement. But we're looking for a lot more transparency and a lot less individual leadership, but more of a group concept where everybody has more of a voice in the decision-making process.
So I'm just going to read the mission statement. It's CFI exists to elevate, promote, and represent the professionalism of flooring installation. And then a couple one clarification is we're saying that the WFCA used to give CFI average of $200,000 a year prior to the acquisition. And
I can't speak to that. I can't say if that
like I said, there was years. It said they were. I know it was at least 50, and like I said, there was times
right,
it was
and
more.
that's why it's an average. And then the other one is about what Paul was saying earlier, and we kind of just touched on it, right? You know, and this is directly from, you'll probably know who it's directly from, but he says that it all falls on the person running the association and not the advisory board, because it fell on him when he was the executive director.
The structure was different under his watch than what I'd like to see it be in the future. I will say that. Okay, we'll leave it at that.
All right, I missed that question. I didn't see it. What was that question?
It wasn't even a question. It was just a statement that it falls on the executive director and not the board.
Okay.
And well, for clarification, again, we're part of a large organization. Okay, so when WFCA purchased CFI, just to give you some background, CFI had a board of directors prior to the purchase. After the purchase, the board of directors was dissolved. It transitioned into an advisory capacity. Okay, now once we transitioned that way, we lost some of the ability to influence what was being done day to day within the organization. Most of the power shifted from the board of directors to that executive director position, which literally gave one person a great deal of control over the path and direction of the organization. What we're trying to do is move back closer to where we were prior to that.
Gotcha. I think a fair question that's come up is, now that the WFCA has bought two other entities, the NFIC and FCITS, what effect does that have on the CFI advancement?
They each will have their own budget. In other words, they aren't going to, at least, unless things could change. I mean, we'll be realistic. But, right now as it stands, our budget has not been cut or changed whatsoever. And the budgets will be set for each one of those organizations.
And they have their own structure. NFIC has their own advisory board, and they're all run separately still.
Could they work together with the installers from CFI, with all the other entities in there? This includes the FCEF as well.
FCEF, we don't. That has its own structure. The NFIC, a lot of us same people are on that, with that board, committee also.
Well, I was also referring to the installers, trainers being utilized for all the entities. Are the trainers interchangeable?
Yeah, because it is part. Yeah, well, they have to be NFI certified, just like if you're a CFI trainer, you can't train over the level that you are. All right. So for somebody to be a trainer for NFIC, they would have to be NFIC certified, which is still part of, of our organization and WFCA, both NFIC and CFI.
Well, I'm going to read a comment, and then can you take one of you two, take Kevin's question next? But it says, so CFI isn't ran by the people, it's ran by the WFCA. I think I'm going to add 2 cents here. I just want to recap what has already been said. I'm not giving an opinion, but what you've already said is CFI is given submits its budget to the WFCA for what it needs and its goals and curriculum or whatever the goals are for the year. And once that's approved, then CFI operates somewhat autonomously from the WFCA as long as they are working within those things. So while this is typical, I just want to say, of other companies too. Like that, having we're getting ready to start a maintenance division at my company, for example. My maintenance head of maintenance is going to have to submit to me the goals and initiatives for the year and we will give them a budget, but it's his job to run it profitably and make it work, and has autonomy for that to happen. And so I wanted to recap that and then just add a quick statement. But go ahead and let you guys,
Elena's comment actually ties into this. So she says the confusion comes because when we ask the office, the answer is we have to check with the WFCA. So I think that's like, so where is that line at where you're autonomous versus we have to ask?
The only thing that,
well, and that was the case. This is all new. It was the case that's when you called in there, they say, well, let's check with WFCA.
No.
They consider
there, Roland, you're muddying the water here. That's really not the case.
Okay.
So let's make sure.
Okay.
Let's make sure we're clear. Right now, and I know what Elena's referring to because this year, for the first time, WFCA has agreed to help with marketing. And they actually put a group together, a professional group together, to help promote marketing for all their brands under the WFCA. So it's a centralized approach. Okay. So Frida Staton is running that up, who's one of the VPs at WFCA. All right. That hasn't even been launched yet. So when Elena calls in and says, hey, can I market this? And they said, I got to go back to WFCA because we have a marketing agreement with another association. I need clarification. That's specifically what Elena, I believe, is referring to. And if it's not, please, Elena, get back on it.
More about staying in line with some of the bylaws and the rules that have been set forth.
Say that again, Jose.
So it's more or less about staying within the bylaws, the guidelines of the contract between WFCA and CFI.
Correct.
Yeah, as long as we operate within that range, we really don't have a lot of oversight.
So Kevin says, what does CFI have planned for the near future to bring value to the membership and draw in new members as well as trainers?
Phillip, you want to take one?
I know we've been working on it behind the scenes, and we've been talking about a lot of stuff going forward about getting more value to the members. It's in the books. I know it's being discussed at our advisory board meetings, and there are some stuff we are working on.
Anybody want to expand on any specific thought processes maybe that the board's considering or any of that?
So obviously our goals are to bring more value, right? We always want to have value for the members, and it takes a lot of work. It's not just an easy snap of the fingers. Last year, our goal was to start up the chapters again. Roland did a great job of doing that. We're up to what, 12, 13 chapters?
12 chapters
so,
right now.
So we want to bring value to the chapters as well, and get their programs up and running, and be able to bring in people that are talking and presenting, and bringing them, people that show up at the chapter meetings, get something special. And we're looking at, convention, bringing more value even to convention, and bringing more vendors to convention. We know that one of the things that is really important to us is to come back to more value for the members. It's not just enough to be able to say, you can market it, you can do whatever you want with it. It's up to you to market yourself. We have to teach people how to market that. We have to give classes on how to network and how to be able to push forward and utilize the network. So it's not just about material things. It's about being able to connect better with the members and making sure that they know how to connect with each other.
And it sounds like leveraging their certifications and trainings and teaching them how to do that in the marketplace to gain more business and leveraging their great new training. Is that?
Yeah. Like we need to be better at, after people are certified, following up to show them what to do with it after that, or even just presenting it and to people that aren't certified to explain why they need to be certified.
Jonathan Varden says WFCA has always helped with marketing. We had TK Fusion, a professional marketing company through the WFCA. Frida has always helped with marketing since 2015.
And I don't think that he, like when Rod was talking about it, he said that it's just a brand new thing with the marketing, right? It's just that, I mean, even before a few years ago, it was like, no, you can't use this because we have to go through marketing. It's always been like that. It's just probably even more strict now.
Well, here's what's going on is that TK Fusion has always been responsible for producing any press releases we send out. Okay, that all gets ran through them, and they write them up. And then some of the global stuff that they do in terms of advertising has been done through TK Fusion. A lot of stuff that we do leading up to TICE each year. So yes, they've always had some involvement. Guys, this year, for the first time ever, they actually put together a strategic plan for marketing. That's quite a different focus.
Yeah, I think some of the point is that some of the stuff that people are seeing have changes, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't already there. Like Phillip said, there's always been 2 logos. There's always been help with marketing. So some of this stuff seems like it's coming out to maybe just coming off of people's chest or coming out in the forefront. But is the advisory board planning to continue promoting training for Hispanic people? So Spanish speaking, supporting the Hispanic community. What kind of efforts or planning specifically to promote training for the Hispanic community?
So I think that, of course, it's a huge industry out there. It's a huge part of our membership, and it's really important to do. I think that where we really need to push forward isn't just the training, but the marketing of it as well. So again, that's where WFCA can help us, is to pull all of the instructional material into Spanish and do more of it and do it better.
And we have 2 young Hispanic members on the advisory board. First time ever that I know of. So, we are, staying to that and continue to grow on that.
So there is talk and movement on helping and engaging with the Hispanic community to further their trainings and do those kinds of things.
Absolutely.
So I have a question that's a little off of that topic right there, and it's a brighter question, not so in depth on how the corporation is how is CFI working to help certified installers actually use their credentials to win bids, get hired, or earn more money? Is that part of the marketing plan as well?
Yeah, I mean, that comes back to the marketing, that value add, right? And what can we do for that membership? And part of it is that that training of how to network, how to market. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so on the commercial. Sorry, Daniel.
Go ahead,
Jose. On the commercial side, we've been marketing for many years through specification. if you pick up a commercial specification here in Kentucky, and I know it to be true in a lot of the surrounding states as well, that it says that you have to be a C2 certified mechanic to even bid the work. You're seeing more and more of that. It's harder to create that same angle to make an impression on the residential side of the industry. But it doesn't mean we're not making an effort. It's just there are some things that begrudgingly you don't seem to make much progress, but we haven't given up hope that we can impact that.
All right. And as far as the literature that you're saying that is stated or required, it's a little misleading at times looking at a commercial document where it says qualified versus certified, because that is a broad term. How can we get it back to when I first started looking at prints and drawings, it would say certified, not qualified? How can we get it back to that to better help the individuals investing in their education?
Yeah, just to reframe that, I think you're essentially asking how can it be there be more of the C2 certification requirements versus the quality of 5-year installer of quality. That's the most popular specification in the commercial world is quality installer of 5 years or more, which tells you nothing or does nothing, versus saying CFI C2 certification. Is that essentially correct, Jose?
That is right, and it doesn't necessarily have to have that exact title, but it's got to have a measurable and maybe a title over that measurable that better describes the ability of an individual installer.
Well, I will tell you that there's room to improve. There's no question. Okay, and I will also tell you that one of the proudest things for me is to walk into a retail store I've never walked into before and see the bullseye on the door. At least there was a time when that was very important to the retailer. And I do think we can do a much better job of going back and attacking that segment more aggressively to bring value to the guys that are working locally. Like I said, commercial is what I do. It's what Paul does. So it's what you guys do. So we're all very familiar with what goes on in the commercial world. I think it's very important that we put some focus on the residential market as well, particularly in a year that it's been not so friendly. It's been pretty tough on a lot of our residential installers.
Well, the retailers really have to, there's just a quick opinion. The retailers really have to leverage their marketing to say, hey, we sell the same stuff pretty much as anybody else. What sets us apart is that on the door that you just walked by and seen. That's what sets us apart. That's in some version of that. Retailers could gain a lot of credit by leveraging their installer and the installer strength they have. I think that would be excellent.
Well, it's all a part of
when it comes
right? That's what you're trying to package is putting it all together from time of purchase through the install. And by having certified mechanics, you got a better chance of being successful. I firmly believe that.
Yeah.
When it comes to residential retail, the high-end, manufacturers are putting in there, NFIC even, some of them are, but they're putting in your everyday carpet and flooring at LVP and that's going out the door. That's going to come strictly down on the retailer knowing the value of what that is. The installer going out there knows what he's doing. That's a tough one. It's been that way, Jose, for years and years and years. That's, getting the consumer to understand the value of somebody certified. And that, that's a tough one.
Well,
there's a lot of work to be done.
To build on that, some of the questions, this will probably address a few of them. Are there going to be more talks with the mills to work with certified installers? Now, that's all the mills would have to actually put that in their installation instructions. They don't work with the installers. Mostly they work through a retailer or through a dealer. But, and then there was another one that pertained to that as well.
This one.
Yeah, the mills say there's not enough certified installers. So those two kind of go together. But is there more talks with the mills to further embrace the CFI certification as a standard for touching their products or anything like that?
Well, I don't think we've stopped talking to the mills. We've been dealing with the mills for years, and we've come up with new programs. Jerry Miller had the advanced commercial program. So I think the talks with, we are tweaking our training to help the mills out at this point.
And you know, we have a mill representative in the installation world that's the whole family and everybody else in Dalton is very familiar with, Bruce Gentry. And, you know, they're coming back and they're looking at us more. So, yeah, I think, you know, we're making headway, but it doesn't happen overnight.
And you have to remember, two of our biggest sponsors for our convention, you know, they're showing up. Sean Mohawk, they're showing up. They're at our convention. They showed up in force last year to convention, and they're going to do the same thing this year. So we are moving in the right direction. It's not going to be easy. We're asking them to make some substantial changes, but we're not going to give up.
You know, this.
So I got to add something to that real quick. I'm sorry for interrupting here, but there was a comment that said if the mills are saying that there's a shortage of certified installers, then and if this is a whole marketing thing, then why aren't the mills marketing that? They might not need the literature that says must be installed by, but why aren't they marketing a certified installer to be the first person or company to look at?
You're absolutely right. And honestly, the fast answer is they're afraid to alienate anyone
or lose money.
Or lose money. So it's education of everyone of why it would be beneficial. That's why it's not an easy fix.
Now, I will say this, and it's not widely known and probably not widely exercised, but I do know for a fact that several mill tech reps are out there promoting CFI installers daily.
Oh, yeah.
Meaning if somebody calls in and says they've got a problem in their area and they're looking for somebody to help out, a lot of times those tech reps know everybody in the market, and they call and say, hey, you know, Paul, can you run over and take a look at this? They've got a problem. They need some help on this woven product or whatever it might be. That has been going on for many, many years.
Yeah.
So it may not be a direct marketing, which certainly is what we'd like to be able to get to, but I'm going to tell you, your credentials do mean something.
And I think what a lot of the installers don't understand is they have to market themselves too, right? Because one of the questions from an email is what's being done to help the certified installers use their credentials to win bids, secure jobs, or raise their rates. And I've been to many like just meetings where they're like, well, you guys are certified. I know because you guys market that. So you guys should be charging more. And I'm going to introduce you to this person because they've been having issues with this other company. And that's what you have to market yourself. Like as an installer, you have to be out there telling people, hey, I'm certified. Come check out my jobs.
And not only that I'm certified, but why they care. You know, they're not going to get the callbacks. They're not going to have the problems. If the mill comes in or the product comes in and it's technically, you know, within spec, but it's not quite perfect, you're going to be able to install it, and it's going to be nobody's going to know that it was should have probably, yeah, even though it's still within spec.
So I'm going to try to ask a couple of more questions here. What happened to the regional training program? Right now we are seeing one person for the most part.
I don't know that I feel like that program has gone away. Until recently, Dave was heading up the education division of the association, and I thought Dave did a great job of keeping all the regional trainers involved and And if they weren't actually out doing training, they were coming to train the trainer sessions and doing things internally. I will tell you that obviously as the residential market has been down this year, there are fewer carpet trainings going on, which a lot of those regional certifiers are people that have specialized on the carpet side, which probably has reduced a little bit of their involvement. But that program has not gone away. There still are regional certifiers. I don't think I've seen Jimmy Salisbury's name come up. Jimmy is a gentleman out of Indiana that is a regional certifier, and Roland's worked with him a couple times, and Jimmy has done a great job. And I'm sure that somewhere in the near future, he's probably going to get promoted up to senior manager or senior certifier. But no, the program's still very much in effect. We're probably not utilizing it as heavily as we maybe once did when we were doing more carpet training, but it's still there.
Is there a reason why the mills don't sponsor trainings and try to get more people to them? To your,
I mean, some in an indirect fashion, some mills do. You know, Tarkett goes out and does their own training.
True. I think that this might have been more of a CFI, like teaming up with CFI to promote a training in a large metro or something. It's a one-liner question. So
yeah, I've had two regional or two advanced resilient certifications here in Kentucky in the last year. On both occasions, I had Shaw come in one time. I had Zern's group come in one time and help out. So we've had mills participating. They don't necessarily sponsor the events, and I don't know from a legality standpoint if they can do it any more than you or Rockball could sponsor for our subcontractors. There may be an issue there I don't know of, but you would think that they could participate more than they do. But we're seeing more participation than we did in the past. So I don't want.
Yeah, I don't want to call not to call the mills out, I should say, but the, obviously they want their products installed correctly. I think that's the essence of the question, and so getting involved in not indirectly but directly in specific trainings that maybe they're having problems with. Who knows? I'm reading into the question a little bit. That's
so this next question is kind of a two-parter, right? So I'm going to pop this one up here. Elena says, when is the next C2 certification? Because she sees a lot of intro classes. And then we had one come in that says, why does it seem like the FCEF is receiving more attention and resources while CFI relies heavily on volunteers? Because those a lot of intro classes are tied to the FCEF, I feel like, and doing that type of thing.
Well,
why are we seeing
FCEF is teaching high school and college shop teachers how to get students interested in joining the trade, right? So that's one aspect, but that's the FCEF's, that's their resources, and they pulled together those trainings.
I guess I was just tying it together because for that answer exactly, right? Because it's not just one or the other. This is coming from them, even though it's the same people that may be doing the classes. It's not necessarily coming out of CFI's budget or anything.
No,
doesn't the training come from CFI's instruction though?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Doesn't the training come from CFI's instruction? Like, wasn't the curriculum written?
There is a separate curriculum that was developed, and again, Dave, thank you for your involvement. Dave had a lot to do with developing that curriculum for their.
Dave's popular today.
He's always popular.
I think he's on here, so I might as well give him a sign. but Dave had a lot to do with helping develop that curriculum and taught the very first class there in Dalton, Georgia at the community college. Okay, that is not, quote, an FC or CFI program. However, when we go out and do our 5-week sessions or some of the other programs that we have, FCF funding helps pay for the scholarship to allow that installer to go participate.
Okay, and so another one is with an association that utilizes a budget of over $2 million. Why does the WFCA expect CFI to survive utilizing so many volunteers?
Because it's for the members. I mean, we can't have it both ways. We're either, for the installer, by the installer, or we're run by the big dog, right? So
I think it's almost a part of our culture. Look how we started out. Look at how many certifiers ran across the country doing work to this day. Look at everybody sitting here right now. We're all volunteers. It's almost in CFI.
I mean, I'm not getting paid for being on here today.
Oh, the check's in the mail, Roland.
I was all ready to write my bill up for.
I ought to charge you for how long it took you to get your camera.
Well, I went to my laptop.
Oh, good.
I'm on my laptop.
Roland, if other people had seen the dancing that you did earlier,
oh my God,
maybe you'd gotten paid for that. I don't know.
So I think this actually ties back to you saying that, everything is being marketed by the same people now. And I think that was one of the issues before, is they seen all this marketing for only the FCEF and nothing was coming out for CFI. So it kind of was like, why are they getting so much attention and we're not?
Well, and FCEF also gets funding from the manufacturers.
and
And grants.
wait, the grants. I'm going to tell you, I don't know the actual numbers, but I have a feeling that Kay spends more than 68% of her time filling out grant information. They run a lot on grants, federal grants. So
yeah,
you cannot compare the two at all.
Yeah,
totally different.
That runs kind of across the organization, and maybe a major point to make. WFCA has multiple different entities within it that have to run separately and differently because of things like that. So if you take CFI, put it in a silo and say, why aren't we getting what they're getting? It can't be done that way. And maybe that clears some confusion up. The fact is it just can't be. I know from other experience that FCEF can't share grant money that they won the grant on for a very specific thing that they're going to use that grant money for. So it can't just get shoved over to another entity or something. So each one has to operate differently because each one's a different organization, which goes back to your original comment.
And
we are separate, but we're under the same umbrella.
And not only that, it also ties back to when Leslie was like, nonprofits are under even stricter guidelines than a for-profit company. So they have to keep track of exactly how they're spending all those funds, because all those funds have to only be allocated towards what it was meant for.
So maybe you just found out.
I would love to be able to go after a lot of grants. I personally am not good at grant writing. So if there's any experts out there that want to look for grant money for CFI, you know how to get a hold of me.
Or some grant money to pay Roland in coffee.
Yeah, I seen that. They didn't think there was enough coffee beans in the world to really pay him off.
Hey, I need a cup. It's past my cup time.
No, back to the volunteerism, guys. It'd be great to have a limited amount of funds to do whatever we wanted, and to be able to do more marketing and be able to do more promotions and all kinds of things that would be fun to do if we had more money, right?
And more time.
But you do have to pick and choose what brings the biggest bang for the buck sometimes. And without our volunteers, we couldn't accomplish a great deal that we have. And
well,
so
there's also
it's part of our culture. We built this organization on volunteerism, and it continues. And for the foreseeable future, it probably will be a volunteer organization. Which
that's
like
one
Leslie
of the
said, it's tough to have it both ways. You know, you get volunteers, and I'm going to tie this into what Jen commented that, but you got different entities and volunteers, and some are ran differently. And Jen says, you know, there's legalities that manage the divisions. So there's legal reasons why certain things happen.